Okay. How's everybody doing out there in YouTube land or wherever you're watching from? Welcome to fourth iteration of the town hall for the GOP contenders, the challengers, those of us who are up against the incumbents, looking at trying to restore order and decency to government, assuming that's possible.
Yeah.
Now we can't talk too harsh because there are some individuals in government, in bureaucracy, who have done amazing things. I'll go one for Phil McGrain, by the way. Absolutely love the work he's done on election integrity and a few other things. But yeah, a lot of us see waste and abuse that we think it's time to get rid of and streamline the process and give people back their rights. So with that, tonight, you got me, Joe, and Justin. And in addition to Justin, we got Sean Crystal. So we got two gubernatorial candidates tonight. So we'll go ahead and give everybody a chance to introduce yourselves. Most of you know me. Joe, give it a go.
I'm Joe Morrison, running for U.S. Congress District 1 candidate versus Russ Fulcher. Been doing this for a couple weeks now. It's been good. Grew up in Idaho. Really need to see a change in leadership and representation for the people and not just a few is the big thing I would say.
Right. Justin.
I'm Justin Plant, running for governor. A little about myself. Grew up in Colorado. Moved out here in '94 after we were unable to keep up with the taxes in Colorado with our small farm. Moved out here. Been working as a mechanic for a lot of years, 30 years now here in Kimberly, Twin Falls area. And I decided to run because, I don't trust the government.
Sean, first time on. What you got for us?
Sean Crystal. I'm also running for Idaho State Governor. My campaign is based on Elevate Idaho. It's time to get government back in its wheelhouse, back into the lane that it's designed and intended to work for, and start putting power back in the people, back in the local municipalities, and take a step back and actually for violence.
Yeah, you're starting to cut in and out there, Sean. And if you can do anything to increase the volume, I know you're in your car.
Yeah.
Let's see. You don't always got a lot of options as far as fixing audio and volume.
Yeah. It's a little selective service out here. I thought I grew up in the outskirts of nowhere, and right now I'm driving through the center of it. So.
And that happens. We've all driven that particular stretch of road at some point. Okay.
This is my first time. So going out to Murphy from Boise, that's a totally different scene.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Absolutely. There is a lot of nothing.
Yep.
And you're out on this side of things, so it's flat too. You can see the hills and the mountains off in the distance, but it's like a whole lot of flat, whole lot of nothing.
It is.
Yeah, that's where I grew up at. So there's a little walk parking by the river that's pretty cool. I like as you're going down to the valley.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get this started. So first set of questions that Joe sent out, everybody's got, so they've had a little bit of time to look at it. So what is the one state agency you think is failing? And what would you change in the first 90 days? So, Sean, you get first at this. Did we lose you, Sean? Looks like you found one of those deader gaps than usual.
Yeah.
Okay, Justin, while we're waiting for Sean to reconnect,
All right, I feel our education system probably one of the most important failing systems. It's kind of hard to narrow it down, in my opinion, but where our kids are our most important asset, I would say our education system. Uh, First thing I would do is really get in there and audit all levels of it, and then make sure it was transparent as to where the money's going. Uh, Another one of my parts in that is the citizens task force that allows people that work in that field, have vested interests in it, be able to express their concerns and bring their points to light, so we can all work together to make a better education system for all the kids.
Okay, Sean, did you hear the question?
I did. Did I lose you guys in
Yeah,
chat here?
yeah. So
Okay.
we're going to give you an opportunity to say it again.
Right. So, I would focus on Medicaid administration. Too much money is being lost in bureaucracy.
Okay, we lost you again.
Yeah, it is.
There you go. We lost you after bureaucracy.
All right. Let me try and do this. Bureaucracy. Where was my notes here? Okay, yeah. Too much money is lost in bureaucracy while provider access is getting squeezed. And in the first 90 days, I'd push for a full audit, public reporting in plain language, and an immediate review of administrative overhead before touching patient care.
Okay. Joe, I mean, we aren't at the state level, but what would you do at congressional level to affect state agencies?
So I was kind of looking at this too. It does look like there's a lot of red tape in regards to even starting things, applications for processes for like mining, stuff like that. That all really needs to be cleaned up. And as well with, you know, the education is very near dear my heart. I grew up in rural Idaho. I'd love to see it back to a place where we are actually providing a great literacy for our underprivileged and underprivileged people, because there are a lot of underprivileged people in Idaho. I would really love to see cutting some of that like in applying on the websites and everything like that. It seems like there's a lot of barriers just in applying just through a website. I think those items can be streamlined. We're in 2026. There's a lot of things that I think would be minimal on, if not better, cost effectiveness for creating a system that will be easier to use and easier for people to actually get out there and be entrepreneurs.
Okay. Man, this is a tough one because both Medicaid and education are key things. You know, at the congressional level, okay, I'm going to do the politician thing and I'm going to choose both. Education level, the Department of Education absolutely needs to go away. Since its inception, we've seen nothing but education go downhill as it's been turned over to bureaucrats and people who are favored among the president's inner circle. It's been turned into a political brouhaha, you know, and the amount of money that's been given to McGraw-Hill, you know, Maxwell's father, over the years in order to ship and give a monopoly on propaganda in our schools has been absolutely shameful. You know, so do away with the Department of Education and allow the states to take back the full role of education as the U.S. Constitution intended with the 9th and 10th Amendments. You know, education belongs with the state, with the local community, and absolutely needs to be handled at that level. Now, one of the other things that we talk about, Sean, you mentioned the Medicare program. Okay, right now there are no less than 5 federal health care programs that are operating within the borders of Idaho. Every one of them, Idaho has to answer to in some capacity or another. You have the medical clinics for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. You have the VA. You have Medicare. You have Medicaid, and at least one other that I can't name off the top of my head. Okay. These are 5 different bureaucracies, 5 different processes to get access to aid, 5 different sets of communities that you need to go to. If you are on Medicare and you have a family member on Medicaid, you can't even go to the same hospital in some states and in some of our communities. So we absolutely need to take all 5 of those organizations, fold them into one, reduce the bureaucracy between the organizations so that we have one simple single player for those people who are in need of indigent services. If you can't afford an insurance plan or you can't afford direct care with a family physician of choice, you absolutely need to be able to, access one system that's easy for everybody to get a hold of. And that's my take on it. The Doge question. Where would you cut spending and where would you invest more and why? Let's go ahead and run it back around the circle. Joe, you're up.
Where would I cut spending? So I would honestly cut spending to, Idaho is so, we cut so much spending anyways. It's really a hard question for me because I feel like I don't know where there would be a place where I'd cut spending. I know where I'd invest spending. I know where I would invest like into logging, mining, energy sources like that.
Okay.
But on the cutting spending at this point, there's the private school vouchers. Anything that really goes private is where I would cut spending. Anything that comes from public to private is where I would start with cutting spending. But then investing spending, I'd definitely invest it back into creating more jobs for the state and cutting some of that regulation and really getting back into Idaho what we can do for making to be a better place for everybody. I guess cut it in a lot of these opaque private sectors that just take money from us and give it back to invest into logging and mining and creating more sustainable future for Idaho.
Justin, how would you direct the Idaho legislature to cut? JFAC, what would you give them as their primary mission?
Well, like Joe said, we cut and cut and cut because we've overspent for so long now. So I don't know that cutting's going to help at this point. It's hard to cut what's barely functioning as is. I think a lot of it is just tracking the money in all those departments, making sure we're not double paying, making sure the money is going from point A to point B without a bunch of middlemen taking their cuts. So in my opinion, it's just getting a hold of the finances first, getting it transparent where we can see where everything goes and everybody can see it, and using your citizens task force to, really get to the bone of where all the money is going and why we have such a shortfall over so long. I really think it's just really poor management that got us in this position. And in order to be able to fix that management, we've got to get to the bottom of all of it before you could say, hey, this is truly failing. Let's cut it and move that money into a program that is working. Yeah. So until I can see everything and make sure everybody can see it, it's hard for me to say we could cut anything more. Might have to be honest, raise taxes a little bit just to start compensating until we can get a hold of all of our finances and get them straight.
Okay, Sean. And we lost Sean. Okay, that happened.
That's the car out there.
Yeah, if you ever been to Waihee County, that's par for the course. Oh,
There we
he
go.
is.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I lost
Okay,
connection as we dropped down into the valley off the hill there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You're up. What would you cut? What would you invest?
So I'm a little bit scared. Place cut. We didn't do this.
Okay. You keep cutting in and out. You got blurby.
Sure.
No, yeah. Well, we're waiting for you.
Healthcare and our education. Yeah.
Okay.
Am I scared? Or did you guys lose me?
All of it.
Yeah, at the very beginning.
All of it. Okay. So I lean a little bit on the other side. I think there's still plenty of places to cut. But what we did wrong is we cut across the board instead of being more precision and surgical about it. So I'd cut administrative bloat, redundant programs, and unchecked contracting. I'd look at investments into infrastructure, rural healthcare, and our education system, especially when it comes to training pathways that prepare the next generation. We need to cut where the government has gotten lazy and invest where Idaho actually needs real strength.
Okay. And a lot of you right there are talking about digging deep and cutting into funds that, consistently gone to friends of the state, which is good. Absolutely. We need that level of corruption cut in every aspect of what's going on. I like the idea, especially of being able to go in and say, hey, you know what? These organizations haven't helped Idaho in the last 20 years. There's no reason to maintain them. We have an awful lot of organizations that contain bureaucrats and appointees who, only answer to the people who appointed them or to other individuals where they're directly tied into the economy. So we do need to take a look at the bureaucracy and figure out how much of the bureaucracy needs to go away. And again, part of that responsibility belongs at the federal level, because the federal level continues to subsidize and incentivize some of the worst behavior in governments in city, county, and state levels. So we need to get into a situation where we are not incentivizing bad behavior, and the states are taking responsibility for their roles with the powers authorized them by their own state constitutions. So good. I like them all. Oh, okay. Emergency orders, emergency situations. First 24 hours of a major wildfire, riot, or disaster in Idaho. Sean, take it before we lose you again.
All right. I would focus on getting real-time information from local officials and emergency services. They're going to be the ones that know the most because they're already on the scene. They're there. With that, I would activate state resources and coordinate with counties, keeping communication clear and consistent to the public. And then after things are established, I'd get the hell out of the way of responders while making sure they have what they need.
Okay. Solid. Justin.
Yeah, definitely. First thing, you get a hold of the incident command right there on scene. And then, just start allocating every resource that's available, being it city, county, state, whatever's close. Contact BLM, make sure they're involved. Really just, help keep the lines of communication open between interdepartmental divisions, and just support them completely, because wildfire spreads quick. I fought a few of them, and without all around help, it's hard to know where everybody is. So being right there, help them coordinate and make sure communication's clear. I think that's the biggest part, is just supporting them fully with every possible truck available, so to speak.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to take this one first, Joe. So being in Washington, we would be in Washington when one of these disasters hits, is first immediate liaison with with the senators and representatives from our neighboring states in order to make sure that there's clear lines of communication between the governors and the respective state bureaucracies in order to make sure that the firefighting is coordinated, especially where it threatens borders around the states. In addition to that, because it is an emergency situation and the United States government, looking after the general welfare of the people, should have had funds set aside in order to cover emergency situations like this. So I would work with Joe, who would be in the House, in order to release funds to the state agencies responding to these emergency situations. Joe, you're up.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds, it sounds like you guys all had it all pretty covered. So in the reality of it, I mean, yeah, just helping coordinate as much as I can, keep the lines of communication open as much as I can to the lowest level as possible. It's always great to leave the decisions for the people that can and are in the environment, especially for like wildfires. You don't want people sitting there having these resources but not actually doing anything. And you need the people who are able to react to those circumstances, those pressure points in the best way, to be able to free their hands and actually react how they need to. Coordinating with states as well. I know a lot of times we bring Canada down if we don't have enough resources here, and just cross communication, making sure those lines are open.
Okay. Joe, we'll go ahead and start you with this one. One bill that you'd push your first session. What is it and how would you get it passed?
I'd really like to unleash the American or Idaho and mining is one of the things. And one of the things too with it is I'd like to do it with a homegrown Idaho, like somebody from Idaho. I know there's some Canadian companies trying to move down and start their mining. But I mean, I don't. And just explaining to people, saying, hey, like, we do need these resources for the betterment of Idaho. I know metal works is huge in Idaho, so I don't think there would be a lot of pushback in regards to that much, because we are a kind of focused. We do have a little bit of a gold hunger in Idaho and metals in Idaho as well. So I don't know if it'd be that super hard to pass something. But.
Yeah, so Joe, a lot of that I agree with you. One is opening up public lands in order to be able to utilize the resources in them. And one of the lessons we learned with allowing out-of-state and international companies come in to do, control the lumber, control the mining, control the rest of these resources, is ultimately they don't care about the environment that they're invading. They come in, they're strip mining, and they're leaving everything sitting on the surface. We cannot have that. What we need is responsible stewards who are taking ownership of the companies that are involved in doing that exploration and pulling those resources from, the land in Idaho. And as you said, mining's a big one. We got gold. If we take a look at nuclear energy, we got plutonium, thorium, and uranium, sitting in the mountains and the deserts around here that are easily accessible. We have rare earth minerals of a number of varieties that we're currently using for electric batteries, for electric cars. So absolutely, we should be able to get into that and be able to invest in reforestation so that we actually have forests that we can log again. And of course, making sure that this is all handled locally and by in-state companies and corporations, worked by people who live off of the land that they're working. We cannot continue to allow exploitation under, Dodge versus Ford, where literally the corporation owes everything to the stockholders who haven't done squat to assist in removing it from the land or helping the land recover from said exploitation. So yes, we definitely need to be able to get in, attack the Chevron deference, finish burying it so that we can access these lands that are held in public trust, by the people who live on the land that works them. Sean, you're up.
All right.
Okay, we're going to lose you again. Okay, well, we're waiting for him to find a good spot again. Justin.
Yeah, I'm with you, Guy. I really, they don't call Idaho the gem state for nothing. I think mining would be very important to bringing income in. Definitely for pushing for Idaho companies to develop the mining, because the people that live here are going to have to live with the mining. So, if you live here, you're going to be way more concerned on water quality, air quality, and I'd like to see most of the proceeds come to the state. They come out of our state. They should be owned by the state and the people who live here. So that would be an awesome bill to get through, to have it opened up, plug up some of the public lands, as long as they're treated like public land and kept clean and usable.
Yep, Sean, you're up.
Can you guys hear this?
Hey, I'm sort of hearing you right now.
Let me get out of the truck real quick. I think we're getting stopped, so I might have a little better service.
Right.
All right. Is that okay?
Good. I hear you good, loud and clear. Okay,
All
so
right.
this one's your first session. What's your key bill that you're sending to your legislature?
So this one's a fun one for me because I think there's a lot of people that see my campaign and think that it'd be focused on cannabis policy, and it's not. My first bill that I would focus on in my first session, or a big one that I would push in my first session, is a government transparency and spending accountability bill. We need clear reporting, contract oversight, and spending visibility. I'd build support by making it simple. Taxpayers deserve to know where their money goes. That's a policy that's hard to vote against for Idahoans.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, next question. This one, which bill would you veto even if it came from your own party? Sean.
All right. Anything that would expand on government power or increase spending without accountability or goes against the will of the people. Our party doesn't come before principle. I agreed to integrity and affiliation, and those are matters that would violate that integrity if not vetoed.
Justin?
Yep, pretty close to the same. Long as it's best for my state and best for ordinary citizens here. I'd vote against anything that went against our Constitution, or the U.S. Constitution, or any added bureaucracy. We've got plenty of that. So, pretty, just common sense. Veto the stuff that's not best for the people.
Okay. Sean, we're going to go back to you for this one. So, federal government. Okay. Pushback versus cooperation. Where do you see yourself cooperating with the federal government? Where do you see yourself pushing back?
That is a matter that I would focus more on infrastructure and stuff. So I would.
Okay, Sean, we lost you there. Don't know where you wandered in relationship to the tower. Okay, we lost you in infrastructure, Sean.
Okay. Let me find my note here again. Whoop. Whoop. All right. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes. Well, we did.
Happens
here
to the
isn't
best
it?
of us.
Yeah, as soon as you said, "Can you hear me?" and I replied, "We lost you again."
Excellent.
Okay, so we're still at infrastructure.
Okay, so I would push back with federal overreach when federal overreach limits Idaho's ability to govern itself, and I'd work with them on infrastructure, disaster response, and programs where Idaho benefits. It's about balance and not blind resistance or blind cooperation. Often, when we see federal influence, we lose state rights. We lose power and control in our own communities.
Justin.
Well, it's pretty similar. For getting out of, the federal pocket. So as much as we can, make ourselves more independent financially. Some of the programs work well, some don't. I would definitely push back on certain federal policies that might not be best for the state. But overall, getting our own finances in order so we can get out of federal financing, I think would be a huge help to the state and the people who live in it.
Joe, with the power of the purse in the U.S. House, how would you help Idaho support or challenge federal overreach in the state?
So this comes back to a lot of the surveillance state is where I see that a lot of places, and then not only that, but with the power of the purse as well, pushing back on the AI data centers is a big thing for me. But I would be hard on pushing back against the surveillance state in a lot of those ways, and AI data centers go hand in hand with that. And you're going to have to be watchful. If it looks like it expands federal powers, it probably expands federal powers. And that's one of those things we always have to be very, very cognizant of what's actually happening. And I would always push back against it, no matter where, because we need limited government, and we have federal overreach in a lot of places. But I would just push back a lot on federal overreach in general, just because I don't like the federal government in our neck of the woods. Anyways, they're 3,000. Washington D.C. is 3,000 miles away. We don't need a lot of that over here. It's different mentality in Washington D.C. If you've ever been, it's completely different mindset. And where I would work with them is, like they're saying, emergency services or interstates. I feel like is some of these infrastructures, but they still need to be regulated. They still need to be we still need to be extremely cognizant, because once the federal government takes power, it's so extremely hard for the people to take it back.
Yeah, I agree. From a congressional perspective, from the U.S. Senate, one of the things that we've seen happen in the U.S. government, and this is despite representatives from the states, going to Washington, D.C., is continued federal overreach. We see way too much of it. It's unconstitutional. It violates the 9th and 10th Amendment as written in the U.S. Constitution. And in many ways, even the state constitutions shy away from that dependency that we've created on the federal government here in the United States, especially since 1970s and going off of the gold standard under Nixon. So what we need to do is restore sound money so that we aren't spending indulgently, using the money printer in order to pay for things that we have yet to actually earn. It's one of the most expensive credit cards that we've run up, in global history. In the neighborhoods of, we've exceeded 32 trillion. What are we up to now? 36 trillion, closing in on 40. And that not only puts us in debt as a nation, it puts our children in debt, for the next 3 to 4 generations. And that's if we turn it around, which it doesn't look like the current group has any intention of. At some point we have to accept responsibility for the future of America and for our children and pare back that debt. And that means we're going to have to take some of that from the states at the federal level and convince the states to take responsibility for their own communities, as opposed to becoming dependent upon one-time incentives coming out of the federal government. The amount of money that we've budgeted annually based on one-time gifts from the U.S. government has created bureaucracies that we cannot sustain on the revenue generated by local taxation. And that's part of where we've run into the problem with budget cuts for things, we need, because we've accepted responsibility for an organization, something we don't need, as it was imposed upon us by the federal government when they gave us money for things we weren't doing and didn't need before. Now we got them. Now we need the money. Now we can't do without it. And we're broke again. So absolutely, we need to pare back spending in the states that is designed to steal the rights from the state using that coercive force of money. I think that's going to be a big one moving forward. Better paying jobs. Justin, you're up. What do you think of better paying jobs? How are you going to bring them into Idaho?
Well, again, I think a lot of it's opening up our public land for mining, logging. I know I enjoyed logging when I was younger, so it's a good paying job. It's good, solid work. Also, I think we can expand on ag a lot. There's so much being done with hemp, insulation, siding, brake linings. I mean, you've got clothing, rope. It's very sustainable product. We're agriculture here anyway. So I think maybe opening that up and developing more Idaho business in that, different ways of using hemp. I think we'd have more manufacturing jobs. We'd be able to put it out there in our rural communities and be able to support the small to middle-sized towns while, building their economy, building the county's economy, and therefore building the state economy. So I think by opening all three of them up and really pushing forward in manufacturing of what we already have here and developing maybe new ways to, not just potatoes, but other products that replenish easily, like hemp, I think we could really improve jobs in the smaller rural areas.
Sean, you're up.
Yeah, I think that I agree pretty closely there with on that matter. Kind of expanding on it a little further. I think we need to reduce barriers to entry, cut unnecessary regulation, and support trade and skill-based pathways. We need to let small business have the opportunities to grow rather than stacking the rules against them. When we have strong local business, we naturally create better jobs.
Yeah. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, logging, mining, ag, these are, and energy. Energy is always a huge one for me as well. These are, I agree a lot with like what they're saying in regards to this will open up the opportunity. And like Sean was saying, in regards to barriers to entry, I feel like currently the barriers to entry are so large that not just the layman can do it, and that's not good. I think that that is decentivizing people from doing the work as well. And then I really like the idea of getting the corporations out of it and putting smaller businesses in and out in front, because there are a lot of rules and just tax codes and everything like this that they need to sort through in order to figure out how to, even before they swing their first axe, or they swing their first pick, or they dig their first row or anything. There's so much that they have to, that people, just laymen, have to do in order to be successful, and I don't think that's what was meant to be the American dream, in my opinion. And so I would cut back on a lot of that.
Right. So big thing on barriers to entry to trade. And I absolutely love the idea of, if you want people to work, if you want men to work in Idaho, give them manly men jobs. Because that's really what it is. Some of the most dangerous jobs in the world include mining, lumber, even ag to a certain level, especially when you're dealing with livestock. We need to be able to bring those jobs back. We need to be able to make sure our young men are able to access those trades, those skills, and be able to get in and earn a solid, livable wage doing them, as opposed to, just the run of the mill, Idaho good old boys that are trying to find the lowest wage people to get the job done. Lumber, mining, agriculture, all of these are opportunities for a lot of revenue, a lot of income, and to put a lot of people to work with a living wage, assuming we can get the middlemen out of the markets. If we stop favoring the shareholders, if we stop routing everything through middlemen at the commodities mercantile exchange, if we are able to cut out the middlemen, allow small entrepreneurs, small businessmen to go in and do what they're good at with a good crew, everybody wins. This one's especially for you, Justin and Sean. Okay, Idaho Republicans are one of the most fractured groups in the United States right now. I personally have been able to count no less than 6 different factions operating within our legislative body that are really only able to come together for a few unique combinations. As governor, how would you unite the Republican Party of the state of Idaho? Justin.
That's actually kind of a tough question. Uniting people's always difficult. Seems like people don't want to listen to reason if they're more concerned with their ideology. So I think, listening to everybody thoroughly, but trying to remind them that hopefully the reason they got into politics is to help the citizens of the state, unite them into, a more cohesive unit by pointing out what would improve the normal person's life. A lot of that would be having a citizens task force looking in to all the agencies to where they can't push their own agenda as much as what the people would like to see. I think really keeping the citizens involved would bring the elected officials back kind of more into alignment with the people they're representing.
Sean.
I actually think this is a little more simple as far as getting that barrier broken down, but harder to get people to the table. So my goal would be focusing on results rather than labels. Yeah, we've got a very divided party, and it seems on both sides of the aisle actually in Idaho anymore. But at the end of the day, no matter Republican or Democrat or Independent or Green Party or Tea Party or anything else, most people agree on more than they think, and that's something I've learned through conversation from all walks of life. Limited government, accountability, and opportunity. We need to bring the conversation back to those principles and cut out all the noise.
Very good. Okay. So one of the things, key performance indicators. What would you set or have the people set as your primary performance indicators following 4 years in the gubernatorial seat? Sean?
I think this one's a pretty straightforward thing. They should be asking questions like, is our government more accountable? Are people able to build a better life here? Did we reduce waste and increase opportunity for Idahoans? If our communities, if our Idahoan citizens feel stronger, more stable, and more self-reliant at the end of that 4 years, we did it right.
Justin?
Yeah, a lot of it goes to transparency. If we make the government transparent enough, you can see where every dime you're putting in is going, and it's going to the right places. That's I think the benchmark that would really set you out there as a good leader. Being able to get all the audits done, your citizens task force moved in, and actually hold the right people accountable. I think that would make a huge statement if the right people get held thoroughly accountable.
Good. Okay. We're going to throw a wild card question in here, and this is a question of faith. So one of the things that we've seen an awful lot of over the last, 4 to 10 years here in the state of Idaho is issues of introduction of faith into legislation, and working towards a number of issues where we become, where our legislators are more interested in biblical virtue signaling than they are in actual good governance. So in a statement on your faith, where do you stand? Joe, we'll go ahead and let you cue this one up before we turn it over to the gubernatorial candidates.
Yeah, no problem. A lot of times I go off and I say I'm a religious refugee. I grew up in Idaho. I was born and raised Mormon. But I have such a low trust in institutions at this point in time. That comes back to religious institutions as well. I've seen it to where even Christian churches will turn into cults. And we are for a lot of it is a power structure. Religion is a power structure. And part of my core principles of a Republican is there's a separation of powers, co-equal branches of governance, and even in that same hand, the fourth silent power is religion, and there should be a separation between, just like the judicial and the executive and legislative branch. There should be a separation between the power structure of religion as well.
Justin, how would you define your faith?
I am
governance.
Well, personally, my faith, I believe in what I believe in. I don't need to preach it to anybody, nor do I need to go to an organized religion to feel better about myself. That's my personal opinion. As for in governance, I really believe in separation of church and state. I don't believe ideology belongs in governance. Governing is strictly that. You're just like the executive branch is taking care of the money, making sure it's going to the right places through the right entities with the least amount of waste and the most amount of transparency. I really don't care who you kneel for. Just keep it out of governance. I don't believe it belongs there.
Sean, faith and governance.
I love this wild card question. So starting out, I'm a God-fearing and God-loving American. Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. Myself to any sort of denomination. I consider myself a non-denominational Christian. My relationship with my higher power is a very personal relationship. Now, when we talk about separation of church and state, our nation was founded as a Judeo-Christian nation. We have in God we trust throughout our founding documents, on our money, on our coinage, and all over throughout governance. What our founding fathers meant between separation of church and state was that we weren't to force or dismantle other religions based on political perception. So, yes, I will use my faith to help guide my decision making, but I will not say that your religion is unacceptable. I will not force my religion upon you through policy making. So that's kind of where I stand on it, because we were founded on those principles of Christianity, but I'm not going to force that on some party that doesn't see that same way. I'm not going to force it on other religions. I'm not going to say that those religions have to be dismantled because of my own faith.
Okay, so this one's actually an extremely interesting question. Reason why is because most of politics in the state of Idaho, your success is based on who you sit next to in church. Whether you want to call that corruption, whether you want to call that bias, at the end of the day, it is the people you sit next to in church who get you elected. Some churches are more effective at that than others. Now, there is a 23% of the population of the state of Idaho is LDS or Mormon. I grew up Mormon. I'm still Mormon adjacent, just like Joe. And, anybody who's been here longer than a day, 1 in 4 people, were or are or identify as LDS. Somebody. You benefit from being employed by somebody or by a company where many of these people work. So you continue to see that. The next largest population is a combination of Catholic and Catholic light, Episcopalian, however you want to phrase it. And they have their sets of values. And following up with that, we have the Baptist denominations and various other Protestant denominations. Some of them are good, and some of them we see as being ironic in a modern day and age. One of those that may come to mind for a number of people is Christ Church in Moscow. Some churches have an agenda. Some just want to save your soul. And I think one of the things is we need a government that allows a moral people to make their moral choice. The second we start legislating morality, the second we start putting a gun to people's heads to say, you will obey my perception of morality or you will die, is the point in which we've lost the point. I think it was Adams who said our governance is only good for a moral and religious people. And that was the intention, it was a government set to give people the freedom to make their necessary choices, to make moral judgments based on their situations, in their place, in their time, in their shoes. And when we start having people in government, whether it's the governor, whether it's the legislature, whether it's Washington, D.C., who decides what the right decision is for a 16-year-old girl living in Melba, Idaho, we have definitely lost the point, because nobody in D.C. knows what she's going through. That's where I stand on the issue of faith. I do believe in Jesus Christ as our Savior. I do believe that there is a higher power that we need to pay attention to. And it needs to guide us as individuals. It in no way should be guiding the way we write legislation. That's mine. And with that, we're at 55 minutes. It's been great having you all on this evening. Great conversation. I hope everybody out in video land, I got 25 of you live right now. Thank you for popping in and actually sticking through the majority of this. Share it with your friends and family. Let everybody know that you care about who you're electing. And share wherever you're seeing this from. Share it wide. Let everybody know what's going on. Sean, since you're our newest and you've not been on, I'll give you the point on, give us your elevator pitch.
Yeah, so first off, I do want to say thank you to everyone for bearing with me with the connection issues as we were driving out here to another event in Murphy. Appreciate your guys' patience in that regards. So thank you very much. Really, my goal is to build transparency in government, take the money out of politics, and get back to work for Idahoans. It's high time we get government back in its wheelhouse, working on the things it was designed for, and not infiltrating every aspect of our lives.
Justin, you're up.
I'm going to jump off here. Sorry, Justin. That way I can get into this other event. You guys have a wonderful night, and thanks for having me.
Pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so mine is, check out my site, idahoansfirst.com. My plan is built on the 4 pillars: audits, transparency, citizen task force, and accountability. I stand by them. I stand by my plan. Please go read it. A lot of really good information. I spent a lot of time, me and my campaign manager / wife, digging into what the governor can actually do and not just promise, the sky will be blue tomorrow. So please look at it. I'm always here for questions too. Jump online. All my links are there. So yeah, I love talking to people. Give me a yell.
Joe.
And, Joe Morrison, running for U.S. Congress District 1 in Idaho. Grassroots, big on against foreign aid, foreign wars, corporate bailouts. I feel like that's where a lot of our issues are really centered in our taxation without representation. If you wanted to reach me, you can always go to morrisonforidaho.com. That's Morrison at the number 4 ID.com. And I have all my links in there.
Okay, and if you're watching this, you obviously know who I am. JoeEvansForIdaho.com is my webpage. You can look up what I got. I got some 20 pages of policy. Pick your favorite issue. Let me know what's the thing. And as with anybody who's appeared on this, all of us want to talk to you. We're easy to access, via social media or email, and if we left our number on the site, text us. We'll answer questions anytime, anywhere. In the meantime, you guys have an amazing day. And thank you again for stopping by tonight. Justin, Joe, take care.
I'll
Thank
talk
you.
later.